You know what movie was kind of cool like that? I just said that, like when you die so many times because you keep trying to beat the main boss or whatever of whatever level you're playing. Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
One with
Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt.
Oh, and Dakota Fanning.
Was she in it?
No.
What?
Wait, that's the other one.
that?
That's
What?
That wasn't her, was it? I was like, that wasn't her. Bro.
What?
Like, wow.
And Macaulay
she's mature.
Culkin. Okay.
No, it was that one where there was like this alien race that they were at war with, and he kept
Yeah, and then
he would die, and then he would go back to where he left off. It was like
yeah. I remember
it was like leveling
Emily
up,
Blunt,
right?
I think, isn't it?
That's what I said.
I think so.
You gotta listen.
Oh yeah, Cody said that.
Cody
Sorry.
didn't say anything. He didn't. I didn't get that from Cody. That was a really good movie, actually.
Yeah, I watched it. I didn't watch it in theaters. I was like, oh, this is on. I can watch it now for free, and I watched it. I was like, it had me the whole time.
Yep.
It was good. I think it was Emily Blunt, right?
Did you see
that
it?
was in it? I think that
No, it's Tom Cruise.
was it Tom Cruise?
We talked about this already.
Yeah, it was Tom Cruise. We just said
Oh
that.
yeah. Okay.
God, he'd never listen.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was one topic in here that really stood out to me, and I've always thought this. And then who put this topic in there? Column A, row 12. Video games into movies. Why do they flop? Question mark.
Not I.
That was me. I should have said not me too.
Wow, bro.
Just to freak you out.
Great topic.
That's
That's a great topic,
I don't
man.
know who has access to this spreadsheet.
I was like, wait a minute.
It's interesting discussions. Like, what do you guys think is the reason why they kind of just they don't work? Why are they kind of flopping? Because everyone loves these games, you know, the Resident Evils and Mortal Kombats and Assassin's Creed. They're all like great games. Why are they flopping?
Yeah, so I went in and I did a little bit of just to go back on what you said about Assassin's Creed. So the 2016 version on IMDB.com got a 5.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 18%, and this is out of 216 reviews. It gave it 18% total. It's got 1 star showing on its rating system for the Assassin's Creed 2016 film. So I think you're onto something here. Let's pull up one more. Roger Ebert, it gives it a 1.5 out of 4 star review. I watched the last Assassin's Creed. I enjoyed it, but it's probably because I'm a fanboy of Assassin's Creed. Is it like something I think was amazing or like anything like that? I don't know, but I ended up, and I shared this with you guys on our Discord, Vulture actually published an article, all 33 video game movies ranked from least bad to absolute worst. So this is a pretty, popular opinion that video game movies struggle to bring it to the big screen. I have a few theories myself on why this could be an issue, but what was the first thing you thought of, Nick, when you saw that topic?
Yeah, I thought the same exact thing. That they kind of fall flat, I guess. Like, they're not horrible, but they just run out of steam or something.
Right.
The Assassin's Creed, we actually went and saw that in theaters. Michael Fassbender, phenomenal actor.
Oh, fantastic.
But yeah, it's a great game franchise. But I don't know. It just doesn't do well. I don't know why. That Vulture list that you were referring to, Michael.
Yeah.
You want the number 33 on the list?
What was it? I didn't look all the way down yet. What was it? I'm curious.
It's Mortal Kombat 1995.
1995.
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie. I remember, but at the same time, 1995. I don't remember how old I was. Hold on, I can do the math on that. That's simple math.
Don't do it.
I know, right? I was 13. I remember sitting in a movie theater in San Jose, California, and then that music came on, that and the flames went through, and the Mortal Kombat sign. I'm not gonna lie, I had chills up my spine as a 13-year-old.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
Then,
And the thing is that's kind of one of my points possibly to this is 13-year-olds aren't leaving reviews, or at least I don't think they are, on IMDB.com or Rotten Tomatoes or Roger Ebert's website.
Right.
They're not the ones leaving reviews. You know what I mean? And maybe these aren't really directed towards us as the, fan men. I'd say fanboys. But as the fan men that we are. Maybe we are, I hate to say it, but a little too old. Maybe they're targeting these movies and these video games towards a younger demographic, which would be smart. Those are the masses. Because if I had a 13-year-old boy right now and he wanted to go see Assassin's Creed, I would take him to go watch it, and he would love it, most likely. And I would probably be like, oh, this could have been way better. Obviously, I would say something like that. But maybe the filmmaker's making it for the imagination of a 13-year-old. I don't know. Just a theory.
Possibly.
Well, Mortal Kombat came out in 1995, and that was like close to the height of Mortal Kombat, maybe a little bit later, because prior to that, Mortal Kombat was the top of the top. And it took them a while to make the movie and finally release the movie. It took a couple years. So it's surprising to see that it's that low on the list. With Assassin's Creed, we actually took Ciro because that's his favorite, Ezio and all that stuff. Ezio. And he was 15 at the time, I think. So that was the demographic. He liked it. I mean, he didn't mind it. I think if that's the case, if they're targeting a younger demographic and not us, and it's just reviews, that's one thing. Then you'd have to look at the numbers and see what it brought in the box office. Because if they're targeting the younger demographic and they all go to see it, it should be making tons of money. But most of these movies don't make a ton of money. They kind of flop.
Yeah, this is true. So I guess that's considered what a flop is, right?
Either way, it could be bad reviews, and it could be flop as far as money goes, finances go. I mean, if you look at Dave Chappelle, his last Netflix special, when it came out, they showed it to like 5 critics, and they all gave it negative star. They bashed it. They said, "Don't watch this. It's horrible." And then Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 0% or 1%. The critics did. And then when it came to the actual public viewing it, 99% or something like that, 98%, which is crazy high. So you can't really go off of the critics' reviews.
And that's what's really interesting. Like, I've done this lately when I look at the streaming services I use, say Netflix, Hulu, whatever, or Amazon Prime, pretty much all of them. I'll look at what IMDb says or what Rotten Tomatoes says. And it's very different than what the ratings are in some cases. In most cases, in my experience with what I'm browsing, it's very different than what the user rating is or the viewer rating is on those streaming platforms.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think what may be the cause of it is that the users of the streaming platform are actually the users. Now, when it comes to the sites like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, where people can go on, log in, and create a review off the platform that they originally saw it, they can sound like a voice of authority. Now, I'm not saying this is what's happening. I'm saying this is a possibility. But when it comes to the general public, the general consumer, the general viewer that they're making the film for, the opinion is a lot different than what you would see on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. That's a little. It's interesting when you look at it that way.
Absolutely.
Who are we making the films for? Are we making them for the artists, or are we making them for the masses, who the product was actually made for? Video games before, say one of the ones here, Super Mario Bros.
I was just gonna say, go with Mario Brothers.
I know that was the
first.
It
was the first video game movie,
and it didn't do well. But here's the thing. I know, right?
Oh my god!
I remember it with the big guys with the tiny heads. But I remember. Did you guys go to the theater and watch it?
No.
I did.
No, you didn't?
I don't think so. I don't remember if I did or not, to be honest. Yeah.
I think I saw it on VHS when it came out later, after the fact.
Okay. But here's the thing. With Super Mario Brothers, look at the story of Super Mario Brothers. The complexity of story. If you remember playing Super Mario Brothers on Nintendo, the original console.
Right.
What is the story of Super Mario Brothers compared to something like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. The
Yeah.
narrative difference there.
Right.
The world building difference there.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? There's a huge contrast. So if people didn't like, and this is, obviously in that article too, people didn't respond to Mario Brothers very well. Obviously, this was a new genre that was brought into film. It was one of the first video game movies ever made. I think it may have been the first, which is being the first with that very, 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 very small storyline and arc compared to now. And I mean, Resident Evil, I remember playing Resident Evil as a teenager growing into as an adult, and the story arc there, that is a world. They built a world.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like, literally video games now building worlds equivalent to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, where there's their own languages, their everything. How do you bring that all down, one, into a 2-hour film narrative or even a mini trilogy?
Yeah.
Even that would be difficult. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That almost seems impossible to me. When I look at the amount of hours I spent on Assassin's Creed,
Oh yeah.
and I just don't know if it would be possible for any filmmaker, any crew, any actor, any special effects team, any action choreographer to live up to what my expectations would be. Because the other thing about video games and the narrative and world building in video games is it's like a book, like a novel. The way you read it is going to be so much different than the way I perceive it.
Right. I was just about to say that too. I was about to go there because you said, how do you boil all those video game storylines down into a 2-hour film? I was going to say that with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings that you referenced, they did do that with the books because there's more books than there are films, right? So they had to take all those books and boil them down to a few films. So I'm pretty sure they could do, the video game storylines and boil them down to a film, but they would lose a lot, and then, like you said, people would be disappointed, and then it might flop. But they could boil it down.
I think so, and that's a very special case with I'd say Lord of the Rings with obviously Harry Potter.
Yeah,
it's an entire culture, and now what has now left us, which I still can't get over.
It's a theme
Game
park.
of Thrones.
Yeah.
I mean, Game of Thrones came
Game
from
of Thrones.
The series of books, and I'll be honest, I haven't read a single book of that series. I haven't read a single novel from that series. So my expectations started with the HBO series of Game of Thrones. I had no expectations going into it. You know what I mean? That was where my expectation started, was episode 1.
Me too.
I didn't stop.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's interesting with the book. So a book, you're obviously going to have your perception of how that story is being told. You're going to, that character, obviously the main character in whatever books you're reading, it's going to look a specific way to you than it does to somebody else.
Right.
Now in a video game, it's a little different, because in a video game, especially these RPGs that are out there now, you are controlling the story at your own pace, which is very different than when you look at traditional narrative filmmaking. Narrative filmmaking, the director is telling you what's happening and showing you what to see. There's no other option.
Right.
And you like it or you don't. But in a video game, it's very different. You're the director creating your story as you go within this world and these constraints, but you're still making all the decisions. So I still don't know if a director or a film or anything like a crew, production company can live up to what your or the masses' expectations would be, especially if they played that video game religiously the way I did with Assassin's Creed, and the way you guys have with your world-building games. And, I don't know. Because it's so... When you play that game, you are a part of that game. You are the story. You are the protagonist. Right. And your story is going to be 100% different than everybody else's. And it's going to be so hard when someone condenses that entire weekend that you put into trying to defeat a game, and a filmmaker has put it in the span of 1.5 to 2 hours. I don't know. That's daunting to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that could be why some of them flop. I mean,
that could be.
Because they do try to boil it down.
It started to make me think about the expectations.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, and every
It could be an
video
impossible
game
formula.
enthusiast has such high expectations because they love that game, because they've dedicated so much time to that game. Same with the books. People love the books.
Yeah.
That's one way to think of. This could be why they flop. Another way to think of that I thought of first when you sent that list over was a lot of the movies were made back in the 90s. Ever since Mario came out, then you had Mortal Kombat, you had Street Fighter,
Double Dragon.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude. Yeah.
Double Dragon.
Double Dragon. You guys,
Double
that
Dragon,
was
Oh my gosh.
that was brutal.
So you have all those video game movies that were popular in the 80s and 90s, and then they made the films and they flop. But with technology nowadays, does that factor in? Because before they couldn't do all those cool special effects and make them look cool. So people were turned off by the visuals, set aside the storyline and just look at it. It's like, oh, this is not very good.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic. And so when they're expecting these like cool visuals for a video game and then they get, cardboard box cutouts, it doesn't do it justice. So nowadays you've got Pikachu, which looked phenomenal. You've got
Did
Sonic.
you see it?
I have not seen the whole thing, no.
I haven't either yet.
I haven't either.
So I can't comment on it if it's good or not, but I just know visually it's a pleasing looking movie, and I couldn't imagine if they tried to do that in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh
They
yeah.
just have a yellow cat or something running around.
Right.
But now they also have Sonic the Hedgehog, which that brings me to 2019-2020. It's amazing nowadays with the internet and technology that they can post a single picture, a single image, a still of this movie that they've been working on and get instant feedback. And so everybody that loves Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man and all those Sega games, they can make comments and change how that movie's being made instantly. And so they went back to the drawing board with the way Sonic looked because everybody hated it from that one image. And then 6 months later, they post a new trailer with a great looking Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, you know what? I actually just saw that on my feedly, actually.
Right. So that it's a sign of the times, which is promising that you can actually have input into how these movies are being made. The feedback is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of them will post a leak.
A leak, yeah. Exactly.
A
Right.
footage leak, and
Exactly.
oh, I don't know how that got there, but then it got removed immediately. But then they get the feedback. Obviously, they're getting the feedback that they need,
Right.
It's hilarious.
Cody, you saw the original Mortal Kombat. Did you see that they're making a new Mortal Kombat?
I did. I'm actually excited for it because I like some of the people that they casted in it.
The cast, yeah.
And I think that can make or break it. And I think that's why I was so disappointed in the Assassin's Creed one, because you had Michael Fassbender who was leading it, and he's just a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the biggest issue I had was I kind of felt like they weren't taking the time that they needed for these. I think it's almost like they assume there's a lot of people that play these games. They're going to go out and see it no matter what. And they probably will, but I think it's almost like a quick cash grab in a way, where let's just shoot it out there. We'll get what we can out of it, and that's that. Because I was pretty disappointed in the action scenes, and that to me, what the Assassin's Creed was pretty much made of, is those cool little almost like montage of where you kind of do like a little cool move on the soldiers or whatever, and you do like a crazy move, crazy deflect, crazy counter or whatever. In the movie, you couldn't really see that because it was so much like shaky, all over the place, quick cutting, and it's like, to me, that's part of the whole essence of Assassin's Creed, is showing how well they move, whether they're doing the parkour or doing the fighting, the battling and all that. It's that was my biggest thing that I noticed. I was like, they had so much, like, they could have had, they should have had it. You know, that was, I think for me, that was the thing that got me the most with that one. But like I said, I don't know if it's just sometimes the studios, if it's just like quick, they just make a quick buck, and because they know like the gamers are probably gonna see it because it's these popular games, and that I'm hoping that the new Mortal Kombat kind of changes these type of things, where they kind of like take their time and do it right, because they got the talent.
It's supposed to be dark.
Yeah, which is great, and they have the great talent. I mean, they can do the action. I mean, that's pretty much what they're known for, was with the action.
And that's another really big thing too. I mean, we say it's really dark. I think they're able to get away with it because they can be dealing with the fans like us of Mortal Kombat when we were, of a younger age, when we were teenagers. But now they're marketing a darker film to us when we're adults. You can't necessarily do that with children now. You know what I mean? But it gives the adults who were the original fans of it finally what they were looking for, hopefully. It all goes into play. I mean, show business is 2 words. I mean, these films get made to make money, especially blockbusters like these titles. But I can see the complexities that they have to face. You know what I mean? This is me, the artist, the director, that says, I want to make this film in this way that will tell this story the best. It's going to be dark. It's going to be bloody. There's going to be fatalities. And then the producer and the production company and the distributor is saying, make sure you keep it PG so kids can watch it.
Yeah.
That how do you digest that as a filmmaker? That is crazy. What gets your attention more, the 2-hour blockbuster feature film or the original series on any of the plethora of streaming Netflixes that are throwing a bazillion dollars at original series right now, fighting for the audience's attention? What about you, Nick?
I don't think there's one or the other that catches my attention more. It really just depends on the story. I mean, I love a good 2-hour movie or longer that has a good story, great acting, great directing, cinematography that can just keep my attention. Same with the series. I think that the streaming services are just choosing to throw a bunch of money at a series so they can split them up, break them up longer, and then you can binge watch it. Whereas a film, people feel like, oh, I have to watch the whole film in one sitting, so I don't have 2 hours right now.
I see you. Okay.
What
do you think, Cody?
Yeah.
What do you think, Cody?
I mean, I kind of agree with him. It kind of depends on the story, because if it's a good story and I'm into it, then I can watch a 3-hour movie, no problem, if I'm into it. But also at the same time, Netflix, the series and stuff, you can binge watch and knock it out in a weekend or whatever, and that's great. I also kind of have a fond for when they just come out once a week, because I like almost like the whole water cooler experience, where you watch the episode, you're like, oh my gosh, and then Monday comes around, you're talking to your friends, did you see the episode? Oh my god, and you talk about it. You're able to like almost digest it, right, and then get ready for the next episode, and then do it all over again. For me, I kind of like that a little bit more than just the whole like boom, 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 and then it's like you remember certain things, but that's pretty much it. You only remember like certain amount. So but yeah,
I was gonna say that too, that with the series, Netflix is starting to do that as well, that they're not really releasing a whole series all at once anymore. They're kind of breaking it down into weekly groups. They'll do like 3 episodes a week. And I think that's exactly why they do that, is to create more buzz, like Cody was saying, that water cooler talk.
For sure. I mean, all these platforms are competing for our attention and for our subscription dollars now that the media has changed a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't pay I don't pay $60 a month to a cable network anymore to where I can get all these networks. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you pay for what you want to watch now, and they're all fighting for that subscription. The reason I bring this up is because the gaming is I mean, it's no question right now. Everyone's talking about where gaming is going with the immersive content, with augmented reality, with where is gaming technology going now. Although I didn't have I didn't care much for the first series I watched of a game, which was The Witcher, which is also a game as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought it would do really well.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, what did you think about it?
You guys know how I felt about it. And no disrespect, I know that the talent was there. Because episode 1, I was like, oh my gosh, this could be my Game of Thrones fix, and it's its own thing.
Right.
And I was so excited. And then episode 2, I started being like, okay, what's happening? And then episode 3, 4, 5, and 6, it ended up turning into and this is all opinion based. This is the way I felt about it. But I literally felt like I was watching something like the 90s show of Hercules or Xena Warrior
Xena
Princess.
The Warrior Princess.
Yeah, I was like, what? That's the production quality that I saw. Obviously, a bunch of other people, love it or hate it. I think it did okay on Netflix. But what I have to say is the first episode was amazing. It caught my attention.
Absolutely.
I thought it was great. But then I felt betrayed from episode number 2 through however many I watched. I'm not going to lie. I watched every single one. I watched it through an entire weekend because I had invested.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was kind of my pivot into this
back?
conversation was I'm hoping that these world building video games, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, which may be difficult to tell in the span of 2 hours, or a trilogy, may find a space to get the viewer's attention and keep their attention in an original series.
Yeah, like a mini series.
I think we
Possibly.
Yes, I think we may see some opportunity there, and I think we may start to see more of these streaming services that are producing original series pick up big title video games.
That's a good point.
Which
Yeah. Also,
I think that may be where they are meant to be produced.
Absolutely. And something that just kind of came into my head right now, because of the whole the 1917 film, where it was basically based off of like one take type thing. If they started doing that, maybe for those type of films where you kind of feel like you're in it with them, almost kind of give it more of that video game feel. I wonder if that's another kind of route to go. I just kind of thought of that as you were talking that.
Like first person?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say,
absolutely.
you got it, Nick. Like first person perspective.
They did that one game movie, I forget what it was. They did that first person style. God, I can't remember what it was. It's like a Hitman, something like that. Yeah, I would pull it up right now, but yeah. There is one movie that they did.
Is it that Hardcore Henry one?
Yes, that's it.
There you go.
There you go.
You know what's going to be interesting, or what I think is interesting, it's very smart that they're doing, is they're not really taking franchises as much anymore. They're not taking brands or names like Tomb Raider and, all the other video games. What they're doing is kind of like what Edgar Wright did with Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He was kind of like the first one to do that. So you have a bunch of people and a bunch of kids that love video games of all types and all genres. So they just make a movie with a great script that has video game stuff sprinkled into it, or it's kind of video game-esque.
Yeah.
But it's not a specific video game. So like Edgar Wright did it with Scott Pilgrim, which is a phenomenal movie. One of my favorite directors. And
I was going to say,
That's
I was
a
almost scared
classic.
to say it, but I actually really like that
I
movie.
love that.
I love
It's
it,
such
dude.
a classic. Yeah.
Edgar Wright is such a beast. Baby Driver, really good one as well. But with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, you have like the fighting thing, and it just reminds you of like Street Fighter, and it's like, and all the things pop up, and he's got his transitions are phenomenal. It's almost like playing a video game. Like you're watching somebody play a video game. So they did that, and now you have 2 other movies that are coming out. One with Ryan Reynolds. God, what was it called? Hold on.
Oh
I have it
yeah.
somewhere. He has a new one coming out. Free Guy. The Free Guy.
That's
he's
right.
like in a video game. He thinks he's just living his life or whatever, and then as the day progresses, all these crazy things are happening, and it's video game-esque again. And then he realizes he's in a video game, and he has to like save the princess or whatever it is, So that's another way that they're doing video game movies. They're just not using a specific video game title. There's also a new one that I just saw with Daniel Radcliffe, which is another one called Guns Akimbo, where he gets 2 pistols like bolted to his hands, and he has to go throughout the day and kill somebody that they tell him he has to kill. And it's video game-esque. Like you watch it, it's like first-person shooter and everything. It's very video game related. So that's what they're kind of doing. They're gearing these movies towards video game crowds, but not on a title.
Wow.
Just smart, because then they can't necessarily flop with expectations.
That's
exactly.
true.
They got to produce within their means.
Right. Now, what would be interesting is if they do the reverse. They make these movies, and then all of a sudden they're going to come out with a video game.
I know, right? Seriously.
Play the game, free.
Which
guy.
I'm wondering. See, now that has found success. Now,
yeah.
The Star Wars video games, they were like, oh my gosh, they were loved. And it started out obviously as a film. I wonder about the psychology there, starting off with, okay, this is the world you understand as the way the filmmaker had explained it to you. And now you get to be inside of it.
You be a part of it.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what video games should do. Maybe video game companies
better.
that produce these intense video games.
And it takes them about 10 years to do a video game. They should just tell somebody, make a movie before we release this game.
During that 10, I know, seriously, during that 10 years, put it in the hands of I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about releasing a video game, but my fantasy would be within that 10 years of producing this giant RPG, put it in the hands of a production company to make a feature film or series, or now a original series on one of these streaming services. Of what it looks like, what the story arc is supposed to be, and then let people play along. I think that would be awesome.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Definitely. Kind of like the movies do with the toys. The toys, they kind of let the toy companies know what movie they're working on is coming out, the characters, and like hurry up and make these toys so we can release them right before or right when we release the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, they should try that.
That's interesting.
That would be dope.
That's interesting.
Like we know anything about making video games.
I know. Right.
Favorite video game off the top of your head right now?
Well, everything is now a first-person shooter. From what I see on Twitch.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Everything. Pretty much they run
much.
around and shoot each other. And there's maybe many objectives along the way, but yeah, it's all like the way I remember Nintendo 64 when they released GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
That changed the game. Like that was literally hours of my life.
Yep.
Oh,
before energy drinks even existed, when it was literally just a case of Mountain Dew next to the couch.
Was on that. 007 was.
That's a great one.
One of everybody's favorite games, which is interesting because Doom came out before it, and it didn't have half the appeal that 007 had.
I think the thing was the multiplayer.
It was. That was the game changer because people were teaming up and.
Yeah.
And it had a better, which that's interesting. It had a better, what's it called? Like backstory because of James Bond.
Yep, the actual
Doom
movie.
created this whole character, right? So they took a movie and made it a video game.
We just you just said it.
We just
light bulb. I think we figured out the formula. We've been doing this backwards.
They're doing it ass backwards,
right?
Everybody's doing it backwards.
Jeez.
Tell people what the story is, and then let them partake in the story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Gosh, how did we figure this out? Don't let them tell the story and then tell them they were wrong and tell the story this way.
Exactly.
Email to fix this.
Right.
No wonder we hate these video game movies. It's like, that's not how I played it.
That's not how I didn't do that move. What the heck?
Wait, he didn't die 12 times before he killed him?
Right.